Welcome back to Andersen Acres. Today I wanted to talk about annuals and perennials because I've been getting a few questions on what the difference is and why it matters. So, when most people think of flower gardens, they think of annual and perennial plants, even if they don't realize it. These two vast groups provide colorful flowers and handsome foliage in almost unlimited varieties. Whether your gardening aspirations involve a simple window box or backyard acreage, basic understanding of annuals and perennials is vital. And the most important thing is to know the difference. So, technically speaking, an annual is a plant that lives for only a single growing season, during which time it flowers, sets seeds, and dies. Perennials are plants that don't die after setting seed. They keep growing year after year unless killed by drought, temperatures beyond their tolerance, or some kind of other adversity that they face. They can also die of old age. Most perennials have a limited lifespan. So even though they will live beyond one growing season, they may only live 5 years or 10 years or 50 years. It depends on the plant. Some perennials stay green all year, especially if your winters are fairly mild. Others go dormant. That means their tops turn brown or die down to the ground and disappear, and you think they're gone forever. But their roots live on and send up new shoots next year. So, a common example of a perennial are raspberry plants. They come back every year, even if you think you killed them. They emerge. And usually they look dead. They'll look like just sticks, dead in the winter. But they come back next year. A good example of an annual is, for example, your petunias. Your petunias aren't coming back, at least not if you live where I do. The winter kills them off, but you can plant them again next year. It'll be awesome. So this distinction between annuals and perennials isn't necessarily clear cut, because many plants that are used as annuals are actually perennials in frost-free environments. So think pepper plants. Here where I am, you're never going to get a pepper plant to survive the winter, not unless you take it inside and baby it, even though it goes dormant, and take it back outside the next year. It's just not possible. We get 40 below for weeks at a time. A pepper plant's not going to survive. But in southern areas, you can use a pepper plant as a perennial. So for us, they're an annual. If you live down in Texas, you might use them as a perennial. So sometimes we call these kind of plants tender perennials, and they can be grouped with either annuals or perennials depending on where you live. Sometimes they're grouped with bedding plants and just kind of ignored. But in warm winter climates, you can grow them outdoors year-round, while people in areas like mine, where we get really cold winters, can keep them from year to year by bringing them indoors for the winter. Or you can let them die off in the winter and replant in the spring. It really is a choice. You can decide. A few plants are biennials, meaning that they form leaves but no flowers or seeds the first season. Okay, so they'll look pretty and they'll look green that first year, but they won't flower until the next year. The following year, they make flowers and seeds before dying. So they'll live 2 growing seasons, but then they die. So not a true perennial, but not really an annual because they survived that first season. So things like foxgloves and hollyhocks are common garden biennials. So you kind of have those 3 categories, because biennials, they're kind of in the middle. They're kind of neither here nor there. So a lot of times what you do is you just kind of treat them as annuals, and if they die off in that first year, fine. If they come back, excellent, right? So those are kind of a weird group. Now, annuals produce an abundance of flowers, typically for long periods during their growing season. Perennials also produce beautiful flowers, but for a shorter season, giving them time to store energy and fuel their yearly rejuvenation, because they can't just focus on, look how pretty my flowers are. They have to focus on, look how pretty my flowers are. This was my fruit. This was my seed. Now we got to get ready for the winter. Okay, so their flowering will be much shorter because they have to prep. Annuals give quick results in the garden, but you need to start from scratch next year. Although some perennials produce flowers in their first growing season, many take 2 or 3 years to become established and bloom well, and they kind of need babying that first year so they can really establish themselves. After that, they can commonly live for years as long as nothing happens to them, like cats digging up your garden. Talking to you, DK. He's a garden digger. We get mad at him. Doesn't matter. He's a bad cat. So a good way to start a garden is by growing annuals interspersed among a few perennials, adding more perennials as your garden and gardening interests grow. But those annuals will kind of give you that boost, and you'll be just able to get started and have something that looks pretty in your garden while slowly adding the perennials so you can add interest over time. If you start with only perennials, you might be a little disappointed. There's nothing wrong with only perennials. A perennial garden is lovely. But if you start with only perennials, you might find yourself disappointed. Okay, you might find that you are not happy with your garden just because there isn't enough color and interest that first season. So I recommend doing both. Get a few perennials that you absolutely love, and then every year add a few more perennials while filling in with those annuals that are still really gorgeous. Your local garden center will have beautiful annuals for you to choose from, and you can change annuals up every year. You can decide, I didn't like those guys last year. This year it's snapdragon time. So it's definitely worth looking at the annuals offered by your local garden center because they'll have a lot of options. So take a look, build your garden slowly over time. Remember, you don't have to have a fully fledged garden that first year. Perennials are also a little more expensive, mostly because they last 4 years. So your annuals might be really cheap for a flat of 6, but one single perennial plant could run you 15, 20 bucks, depending on what you're buying. So again, even just for cost savings, you might want to make sure you have just made sure that you're not investing too much money that first year. Not a lot of us have a lot of disposable income, especially right now. So if you're just getting started, pick 2 or 3 perennials that you really love and then fill in with annuals. It'll save your pocketbook. You can get 2 or 3 more perennials next year and still enjoy everything they have to offer. So that was the difference between annuals and perennials. We are going to talk about choosing plants next week, but for right now, that is it. We're just, what is an annual, what is a perennial, and when do they both work? That's all I wanted to cover today. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. Drop a comment below. Let me know if you prefer annuals or perennials. I'm a perennial girl myself. We'll see you tomorrow.